Hello, and welcome to Make a Difference, the show where we spotlight change makers and volunteers, everyday heroes who are making a difference right here in Montgomery County. I'm your host, Florence Jewell. Today, we're thrilled to sit down with one of the 7 amazing women serving on the Montgomery County Council, Councilmember Dawn Luedtke, to talk about leadership and volunteering. Councilmember Luedtke is a true leader who wears many hats. Public official, a wife, mother of 4, she volunteers, and a passionate advocate for public safety, healthy schools, crisis response, mental health, equity, the arts, just to name a few. Her story is inspiring, from growing up in a small business family in New Jersey to performing more than 40 musicals, operettas, and plays. Councilmember Luedtke's journey is about resilience, creativity, and a deep commitment to making a difference for others. Before joining the council, she served as an assistant attorney general for the state of Maryland. She is a certified law enforcement trainer, an expert on public safety, healthy schools, and crisis response, and committed to protecting our farmers and the agriculture reserve, while also creating a strong environment for local business to thrive. She represents District 7, which has a population of over 104,000. It's a unique part of Montgomery County that is both suburban and home to the agricultural reserve. Councilmember Luedtke believes real change happens when we all step up and get involved. So let's get started. Welcome to the show, Councilmember Luedtke.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so thrilled to have you on the show. And let me just start out and be transparent with our listeners that I volunteer and serve on a couple commissions with you, so I know you and your work from there, and we have a relationship. But this is about your leadership and volunteering.
Yes.
So let's start with who you are, what you're doing for the county, and then take us back to when you lived in New Jersey and the young Councilmember Luedtke.
Young Dawn.
Yeah, I was about to, but I want to give you respect.
No. I frequently say at events where I'm there in my official capacity, just call me Dawn. It is a lot easier. So I have been serving on the Montgomery County Council since 2022 when I got sworn in. And I serve on our Public Safety and Health and Human Services committees because we all have 2 committee assignments as council members. And then I serve on a bunch of what we call our external service. I serve with you on both our Criminal Justice Coordinating Commission and our Human Trafficking Prevention Committee. I also serve on the Board of Social Services, the Air Park Community Advisory Committee, and I serve as the county's legislative liaison for the Maryland Association of Counties.
Wow, thank you for your service. And let's go back to your younger days and what shaped you and how this journey started for you.
I would say that first off, I'm adopted.
Okay.
And so my parents adopted me when I was a month old, and I've previously spoken about this, but I was adopted essentially right at the 1-year anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision. Okay. And I have met my biological mother, and I was the product of a rape of a 15-year-old girl. Mm-hmm. And I say that because I think it does shape how I view things, and also perceptions that perhaps my positions might be different than what they are, to say, hey, you were the result of an unwanted pregnancy, and that's the politest way of phrasing it. So maybe you would not be pro-women's health care.
Right.
And yet that is exactly my position, because that she was not really given a choice.
Right.
In what happened to her from conception onward, including being required to give me up for adoption. So I want to support women's autonomy. And I was raised in a business family. They owned a small business in our hometown, which was called Williamstown, New Jersey, which the only thing I think anybody outside of that area would ever know about it is the home of Dom Pepino pizza sauce.
Oh,
That's
okay.
where the factory is. And so our middle school and high school were near the factory, and we had no air conditioning. So you'd have to have the windows open so you'd smell the tomato sauce cooking and being made all the time. So it was kind of an interesting thing. And I have a deep love of that pizza sauce still to this day. But they ran an auto repair business and a supply store. It was called Penn Jersey. And you could own a franchise of it, kind of like you can still do with other businesses. My great-grandfather built the movie theater that was next door. My great-uncle owned the appliance store down the street, all on Main Street, really called Main Street. And so, that was the sort of mom and pop shop business environment I grew up in. And I was the first in my family to go to college. And I was a Pell Grant recipient,
Wow.
too, which are things people would not necessarily, folks often make judgments about you when they just physically spot you, right?
Right, absolutely.
It's a natural human tendency. Like it or don't like it, it is a thing people do. So they would not necessarily have associated me with, oh, she's a first gen. Oh, she received a Pell Grant as a low-income student. Huh, interesting. And yet very important to who I am and how I view things.
Absolutely. What a rich story. And I resonate with the Pell Grant, a piece of that story, but also just the dichotomy of what you just said and how those things have shaped you.
Yes.
and your values and how you bring that to your role here. So I know you're a mother.
Yes.
And your wife.
Yes.
And also you, again, have a background on the legal side of things.
Yes.
So is that part of your motivation, to how you got into being a county council member, person?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that, because
Sure.
we really want to focus on the leadership, and also I know you do a lot in terms of mentoring, truancy program. You didn't
Yes.
mention that, but
Oh, yeah.
and also with a lot of young people and stuff.
Right. Well, and my volunteer work with the state's attorney's office truancy prevention program is just something I wanted to do. I was not assigned to do it. So I named over some committees I serve on as an official part of my duties as a council member. My interest in the truancy prevention program was really because I love working with kids.
Right.
I'm passionate about school safety and success and problem solving, right? And so being able to spend that time on Wednesday mornings that I was working with those children who were at a school not in my district,
Right.
a different district, was some of the richest parts of my entire fall, because of being able to work with those individual children and help them learn how to problem solve and help them learn how to advocate and help them find their path to success, and watching them grow. So that was really amazing, and they're great kids, and I did get teary-eyed at the end of the program, and I go to the graduation all the time.
Absolutely.
And I look forward. I can't do it in the spring because council has budget sessions that sometimes fall on those days, or we have to have them 5 days a week. So I don't like to commit to doing something unless I know I can fulfill it all. And so I have said I had to not do it for the spring, but I'll be back next fall.
And I again, as you said, I've sat on some of the committees with you, and I've seen how you've coached me and how to look at a situation. And I love the fact how you say you listen to the young people of what their thoughts and ideas are about a situation versus starting off with how you would frame and deal with the situation.
Right. They know their life. They know their situation. I can ask them some questions to help them be analytical, right? To help them with their own problem solving. But that's important for them to have an adult who's not telling them what to do, but who's helping guide them in how to think through what to do so that they can make the choice and be empowered in those choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, having that innate ability, because I've seen you in work and I admire that in you, talk about how maybe art or your training in the legal field, what helped you develop? I know some of it is innate because I think it's just natural, but you have a tendency to approach it looking very differently at situations than others when I've seen you in a setting.
In action. Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I will say, to the art side of things and to the performing aspect of it, the performing I was doing wasn't really at my high school. It wasn't like through school. It was, I got hired by a summer stock company when I was 14. And then I started auditioning for regional theaters in and around the Philadelphia area. And so I was a child, but I was working with adults. And so I was very much navigating my path in that space and learning from them too as I went along, because again, I didn't have parents who went to college. Sometimes I was then meeting folks who either had season tickets to the theater or were maybe they were a major donor to the theater, and they took an interest in what I was interested in and helped open doors. That's part of why I find mentoring such an important part of my own life, is because you want to be able to open that door for someone else. You don't know what questions they may have, and if they feel comfortable coming to you, take that time with them to give them that space so that they can dive in, and you can ask them those questions to help them think through what they might want or need, or help them connect them to other individuals who can help them along their way.
Now, you said some wonderful things, and I'm going to pick on a couple. That wisdom of being connected with older adults and the mentoring, and again, as a young person, and tapping into that wisdom. And mentoring. There are a lot of organizations, I'm going to switch to the volunteer piece, in your district that are doing wonderful things with the youth, with the business community and the agriculture. Talk about how the community or people can get involved and bring that ingredients to the next generation, and motivate them to want to be a part and pick up what you've learned, and it really truly has developed in you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I did as a parent was that I always brought my kids along with me to my extracurricular stuff, right? So I used to volunteer very heavily with the Arthritis Foundation, and they would host a Jingle Bell Run every year to raise money for the foundation, and I coordinated the logistics for it for about 10 years for sort of Central Maryland. And the kids got involved. Well, what's arthritis? How does that work? How does this help people? How does it help if they would send me to meet someone else who was newly diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, so I could talk to them about my own experiences to help them understand it doesn't need to control your life, right? So modeling for young folks those things is important. Also, being open to them asking, how do I? And not making assumptions that people know about all these different organizations in a particular area or a district. So being able to be that sort of matchmaker of, and say, hey, you've just identified a thing or an interest, and guess what? There's this organization over here you could do some work with. So I volunteer with our Scouts troop, Scouts BSA, which used to be Boy Scouts, but is co-ed. And all 4 of my kids have done scouting, which is how I got involved with it. And being able to see the different directions that the kids go in. And sometimes they need a little direction on, hey, I need service hours. well, what are you interested in?
Absolutely.
Hey, did you know we've got this organization that does this? I can connect you with that person, and then it's up to the student, the child, the scout to follow up, right? You're not doing it for them, but you're pointing them in the right direction, and then they learn a new thing and have a new experience.
Absolutely. I'm going to switch a little here to some of the things that you said, and I'll talk about the district. You have a combination of suburban and the rural, or we call it agriculture reserve, and there are quite a few organizations, farmers and organizations there, plus, you have schools. You talked about that. How do you, as a politician, my word, but you, how do you balance the needs of both the agriculture reserves plus the residents and the business? How do you balance those different needs?
Sure. Well, I think District 7, of all the districts in the county, I've got one metro stop at Shady Grove, which is a joke I always make with Councilmember Balcom, because she represents the other chunk of the Ag Reserve, but she doesn't have a metro stop, but I do. And I think about all the places I have lived in my life. So the town I grew up in had been largely agricultural. There was developmental sprawl that sort of took away some of that family farmland over time.
Right.
But the majority of the eastern end of the town stayed, including like blueberry farms, which are very big in southern New Jersey. So that was the land of the farm stands and the pick your own and that kind of a thing. And then I moved to Philadelphia. And then I moved to Boston. And then I moved to Baltimore, and I lived in Baltimore over a 10-year stretch, with 1 year where I moved to D.C. and then back again. And then I lived in Carroll County. I lived in Sykesville for a while. And so all these communities have very different landscapes and think they have different concerns.
Right.
Fundamentally, you'll find more similarities than you will find differences, especially when you've had the opportunity to live in all those different types of places. So you're better at maybe assessing how to find the common thread and the commonality. But also, I think it's important, particularly in today's climate where there seems to be a lot of othering, I'm going to call it that, where people believe there is one pie, we only get so much of it, and I'm in competition with people from some other parts for this pie, and I want to keep as much pie for myself, is to say, well, we can make some more pies, but we need to do it together. And you need to understand that your challenges and your concerns are not all that different from someone who lives in a very different place inside our county or inside our state. And how do we find the path forward to the good things together? Yeah.
So again, the District 7 should be honored to have you, because you bring the wealth of experience with your living in diverse communities, and then how you look at a situation and know that the pie is not just limited to this one size.
Right.
And there are a lot of needs that are growing in Montgomery County.
Yes.
One of the things, the needs are a nonprofit. We are about the show, it's about volunteerism, and they're facing challenges with everything that's going on in the climate, and I won't get into that with you.
Right.
But what do you say to critics who, might be saying to you that, there's a lot being put on the nonprofits to solve some of our social needs? We in the Volunteer Center see it as, there's a balance.
Right.
How do you observe what you're seeing happen? And is there a need for government to do more in nonprofits to pull back, or how do you see the two working in this climate of need together?
Well, so largely the way we do it here in Montgomery County is we, county government, have contracts with nonprofit providers who, we may put out requests for proposals, they bid, we contract for certain services for our nonprofits to provide. That being said, there's strain all across the landscape right now because, the government, whether it's the state or the local, doesn't necessarily have extra funds around because we are without funds that we once had. So that's when it becomes incumbent upon us as on the government side, where we can help, is to say, what can we do to help residents who say, I have some time or some energy, I may not have a lot of money, but I want to pitch in. How do we match you over to these organizations? You can reach out to any of our offices. We all know who's operating in our spaces or in our committee work, right? I serve on HHS. And so that's where a lot of our nonprofit providers are.
Okay.
To say, how can we connect people who want to help with those who are doing the work, because that helps them get the work done. And also, we had even in the fall when we had the federal government shutdown and everything was chaotic and Thanksgiving was coming up, and one of our police sergeants, she called me and she said, hey, we got together and we bought a bunch of turkeys. We want to get turkeys to people who need turkeys.
Absolutely.
Help me find out who needs the turkeys, right? Like, they knew they could do a thing. They didn't know how to get it to where it should go or how to deliver it. And I said, gotcha a place. Match make the people so the work can get done. So it's not always that I have to do it directly or that the county then takes on a new department or a new role, but we do have to play a critical part in that problem solving.
Absolutely.
And with ever shifting landscape, now it's more important than ever.
Absolutely. And we're glad that you are matching, where people are bringing in food or a donation, you're
Right.
matching it to the nonprofit and having
Right.
that. In the introduction, I stated that I served as a public member and volunteer on the board. Talk a little bit about how others can get involved, whether it's on a board or commission or just even some people volunteering in District 7, because you have quite a few organizations that are doing great in your district.
Yes, we do. In fact, the Olney Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Olney Civic Association have banded together, and there's a night they host where they bring all the different nonprofit folks together. They've done it, I think, 2 years now in a row, 2 or 3 years now in a row. And they've done it at Lone Oak Farm Brewery, where they set up their tables, so we've got everyone from people who help seniors or those with disabilities to get to their medical appointments by offering rides, to our volunteer fire department, to food security. And they are there so that people can learn about those organizations and come and meet them. So that's one way for people to stay in touch and check out, and that's usually late August that happens.
Right.
But in terms of individual volunteering on boards, committees, and commissions like you do, and we are so glad to have you. The county has a website for all the boards, committees, and commissions with the paperwork. There's a form you can fill out if you want to throw your hat in the ring to be able to serve and have your voice heard as a representative of the public on some of these boards, committees, and commissions, right? Because we need members of the public who have interests in particular areas to step up and serve and be heard. And that's a very important part of what we as government do.
And I would recommend anyone checking that out when there are vacancies.
Yes.
And circling back
Yes.
to leadership, if, for those who are watching, young women, men, anyone, older, younger, what message would you say to them in terms of, what your leadership style, what you've learned, what you would improve on, or just anything in the area of leadership, because we see a lot going on, and some may feel leadership isn't there.
Right.
But we do have people who are leading, like you and others on the council board.
Right.
So talk to us about leadership.
Yeah. So I just went to opening night of a show at Olney Theater last night called Little Miss Perfect.
Oh, okay.
And I'm raising that because there were some Definitely, it was about a young woman, and she was African American, and she was in a school that was majority white. There were only 5 black students in the school, and the same old person had been the class president for forever. And so she decided she wanted to run, but also, what does that mean? Am I mimicking what she's doing? Is that what people are expecting? What is a leader?
Right.
And the point being, the journey taught I've got to be true to myself. I am skilled, I am valuable, I am bringing things to the table, I'm making positive decisions. And so it touched upon, social media and clicks and all of that. And I do find that in politics, as you noted, there's a difference between public policy and politics and leadership. They are not all synonymous with one another. And I think that because we operate in a world of social media, there is somewhat a bit of an emphasis on that in the political spectrum. And yet leadership, and what we need in leadership is tangible, it's doing, it sometimes means taking a bunch of complicated things and reconciling them and making a decision that not everybody's going to be happy with, but having the strength to stand up and say, but this is why. Let me talk to you about it and let me explain.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's not something you can say in 144 characters. And that's okay, because we still, social media is going to be out there. It's going to exist. People are going to, post things. I certainly have, professional social media accounts that we run from the office so our constituents can stay informed. But that's not the heart of the doing of what leadership means. And leadership also comes in many different sizes and scopes. And I think we need to do a better job of appreciating those variabilities in leadership and how they collectively make things better.
Absolutely. Well, we are running out of time here.
Yes.
We need to wrap up. So I just want to personally thank you for coming on Make a Difference show, sharing your journey,
Yes.
and talking to us about leadership and volunteering. I want to thank you for your service to the county and also for volunteering. If there is one thing you can say, that a question I didn't ask, that you would like to say in the 30 seconds, share it with us. We would love to hear that wisdom from you.
Yeah, I am just incredibly grateful to the good people of this county, because I do see a lot of good, and I think we need to be reminded of that, especially on days when you open the front door and you just feel like something's going to be thrown at you right away. To remember that there are so many people here in Montgomery County who really truly are doing good things, whether it's shoveling your neighbor's sidewalk after Snowmageddon before the snowcrete set in, or making sure you're checking up on someone else, or being the parent who brings the snacks and brings extra snacks to the game because not everybody can, and make sure people are taken care of, that many people are stepping up in ways that somebody might say is small, but collectively make a huge difference to us weathering this storm.
Thank you, Councilmember Luedtke. Thank you for your service, thank you for your wisdom, and thank you for being on the Make a Difference show.
You're welcome.
That's it for this episode of Make a Difference. A special thanks to our guest, Montgomery County Councilmember Don Luedtke, who is making a difference not only in District 7, but beyond. And a big thanks to the County Public Information Office production and editing team. And you for watching. I'm your host, Florence Jewell. For more information on volunteering, go to montgomeryserve.org website or contact the Volunteer Center at 240-777-2600. Remember, change starts with you. Until next time, be inspired, involved, and be sure to make a difference every day.